right now a lot of time and attention is going towards entertaining, I call it mindless dopamine content, but there's a shift happening. People are getting sick and tired of that. They're sick of the brain rot. They're sick of feeling empty, and so they're shifting. So, entertainment content demand is here. Education demand is here, but we're going through a shift. So you want to be in the game when this happens. It's happening now. It's going to continue. Welcome back to the Creators for Change podcast. In this episode, we are honored to be joined by Ondra, the robo-humanist, a sought-after speaker and online business strategist who helps people break through limiting beliefs and to create from a place of confidence, clarity, and emotional freedom. Together in this episode, we're going to explore what it means to lead with intention and how his work is helping to shift mindsets across the globe. Ondra, I just spent the last probably 30 minutes watching your content on Instagram and YouTube, and I will say I'm really inspired by your story. And something that really struck me about you is how you're not just a typical business coach who you see on social media, because many others, as you are probably aware, they're just flexing, fancy things like cars they've bought or fancy watches. But that's not the case for you. It's really clear that you care deeply about helping people. So, can you tell us more about the heart behind your work and what inspired you to take that path?
First of all, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure. I'm always excited to go hop on shows and share. So it really started long time ago, more than a decade ago, when I was the shy, small, bullied kid who didn't know how to make friends, who didn't know how to interact with people, who had severe social anxiety and absolutely hated himself. And that's kind of where I came across content creation and especially like creators for change in the sense because I stumbled upon videos of random acts of kindness. And it was these montages of people just, doing something small like helping somebody across the street to something bigger like running into a building that's on fire to save a dog. And I watched these videos and I would quite literally cry my eyes out because it showed me that there's hope for humanity, that there are kind, awesome people out there, not just the people who want to bully me or take advantage of me or make fun of me. And so that was my first experience really with content and consuming content online. And that's where I kind of decided like I want to be one of the people who's going to make content that's going to impact the world or impact people in a positive way. And I went on a huge journey to work on my own limiting beliefs, on my own personal development, and I overcame my social anxiety and depression without doctors or drugs or medications. And so when I was about 19 years old, I started thinking about, okay, let me time to give back and time to share my story and time to start creating content and helping people with mental health. And that's where my journey started. That's why I care so much because I've been through the whole journey myself.
Ondra, we've sailed in similar boats before because, same thing here, bullied at school. And before, maybe you can relate to this, I remember seeing social media as this negative place, this toxic place where there's online
Mm,
bullying, people compare themselves to others, there's that fear of missing out. Did you experience something similar?
yes, totally. And I was, yeah, lucky enough that I also experienced the bright side of social media and the bright side of these technologies. And yeah, I just decided to focus on that and did quite well.
Yeah. Yeah, Andra, you perfectly embody the definition of a creator for change. It's really clear. And just for the audience listening, the way that I define a creator for change is it's someone who uses their voice, their content, and creativity to educate and inspire others towards a better future. And so they challenge the idea that social media is just noise or distraction, and they prove that it can be used as a force for education and positivity. So that's amazing, Andrea, that you really embody that. So in this conversation, I want to move through the same process that guides our entire movement, and we call this the Creators for Change pathway. And it starts with awaken. That's where we explore the experiences that shifted you and where you are. Then we'll move into activate, how you're turning your voice into action. And then finally, there's amplify. So that's like the ripple effect that you and your work is actually building in the world. So with that in mind, I'm starting with awaken. I know we touched upon the experiences that shaped the person that you became today, and so I'm just curious to hear more because there's people listening who are in that position, like they still see the negative side of social media. They don't know how to use it as a force for good. So, what advice do you have for those people listening?
In the very beginning, I think it's very important to just start getting into the mindset of like media can actually be very good for you, but also really starting to understand how social media is bad for you, right? And just start building that kind of self-awareness in the first stages. And a great if you're listening to this episode, if you're listening to this podcast, this is a great place to begin. This is a great start. And once you have more of that awareness of, okay, well, this is how social media can be dangerous, you can start looking at, okay, how can social media can also be positive? How can it be good for me? And how can I step away from the negatives and go more towards the positives? Now, just a really quick distinction that I've noticed that makes all the difference is passive use of social media versus active use of social media. Most people, like 98% of people who use social media probably, are more of passive users. These are, the behaviors are you just scrolling very passively, just consuming all the content. You don't really interact with anything. You don't really engage. You don't really try and start a conversation. Maybe you start leaving negative comments or something that kind of sparks your emotion. That's where you feel inspired. Or maybe you just double tap the screen to give a like, and that's it, right? Whereas the active use of social media is when you actively go and you interact with the creators, right? You ask questions, you start conversations, you go and network, you go and start a conversation, and then you maybe hop on a video call and you network and you create opportunities, you build relationships. That's the active use of social media, and the active use of social media is 10 times healthier than the passive.
Yeah, big time. And I can agree on that too, just from personal experience. And Andra, you touched upon how social media can be used for good, and you shared your story about how when you were younger, you started taking in positive content, but you took it a step further because you weren't just active with social media, you actually used it to connect with people, and that led to bigger opportunities. Like right now, you do speaking gigs, you do podcasts. And so I'm curious, what woke you up to the idea that social media could be used for good in the sense that you shared a story of like how you connected with mentors and how they helped you. And so what woke you up to that aspect of social media?
In the beginning, it was really mainly just wanting to connect with people and wanting to share my message and share my story. So in the very beginning, I didn't have a lot of time to be very active on social media, and I didn't know how to edit videos. I didn't have any cameras or whatever, and I really just was in the very beginnings. But I noticed that Facebook has the feature to go live, and so I created a Facebook group and I just started going live in the Facebook group every day to practice my speaking, to share my message, to connect with some people, to start building these relationships over a longer period of time. And I did a challenge to go live every day for 90 days. And then after the 90 days, I was like, wow, this was amazing, but it wasn't, didn't give me the results that I think I wanted to. So I need to do another 90 days. And then I did another 90 days. So it was like almost a full year of just going live almost every day. And that's where I started connecting with people, and people started reaching out, being like, hey, I've been watching your live videos for a while. I want to help you out this way, or I want to do this. I think I can help you this way, right? And I started connecting with some higher level people who eventually became mentors or even became sponsors and investors into my project. So that was really the beginning where I personally experienced that this can happen just after I started putting my videos out there and sharing my journey.
I smiled a bit as you were explaining that because I did something very similar. I went live in a
Uh,
Facebook group just to practice my speaking, and opportunities came.
yes.
So for the people listening, it really shows that when you go outside your comfort zone and you start using social media actively, it's so interesting how when you come from a place of wanting to give and help other people, opportunities flood back at you. So it's really amazing to experience that. And so, Andra, you really took it a step further because you also you started using social media as a way to grow your business. And so I'd love to hear what your business is about. But first, I'm curious, how did you identify the niche that allows you to help people?
That part was, well, it was very simple and clear, but also it was a lot of changes and tweaks throughout. So I knew that I wanted to help people with mental health and specifically with social confidence and social anxiety because that was the main problem that I went through. And also, I was 19 years old at the time when I was starting my coaching business. So I knew that I can't just give people life advice or, general or business advice or whatnot because I was a 19-year-old kid who had no idea what he was doing. Only thing I really had was this 6 years of personal development and overcoming my own depression and social anxiety. So I knew that that's what I want to do. That's what I want to help people with. And that's where I started. Now, that has formulated and shifted and sometimes went from social anxiety into social health, and then it went to people who helping people who used to get bullied, make friends and build more confidence and things like this. So that was really the beginning for me. That part was quite clear, but in the marketing sense and like the really niching down, that was a years long process of trying different ways and then not connecting with this kind of message, so trying a different kind of message. And
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for being honest and clear on that because I know that there's someone listening and maybe they're in the beginning phase and they're not sure about their niche. My advice to that person would be that clarity comes from action. A lot of people wait to take action until they feel like they have the clarity, but clarity comes from actually doing. So actually putting out content, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, and doubling down on what does. And it's okay to pivot your approach and to try different things to come to that answer. So I experienced it as well. So it's part of the game and don't be afraid of it. Really embrace that phase. And it's kind of like an exploration phase. So it's like sky's the limit, anything's possible. So if you're in that phase, really embrace it. So another question for you, Andra, is at its essence, what do you feel called to help people overcome or awaken to? And could you maybe share a story of how you helped someone with that?
yeah, I think it comes down to helping people realize and awaken that they have the power to really have control over their life, right? And to really realize that they are the only people that can shape their own reality. And this sounds kind of weird. So let me give you an example. I had a client. I ended up working with him for about 9 months, but originally it was a much shorter contract. And he hired me because he was very lonely and he felt very isolated, and he was stuck in bad habits with dating apps and all kinds of negative influences. And he also got diagnosed with, I believe the labels that they put on him was autism and social anxiety. And so he was really stuck under that, and he let the label just completely crush his life. And so when he met me, he spent 2 years in and out of therapy and trying different medications and trying different drugs, and nothing really helped. And after we started working together, in the first first few sessions, I helped him kind of take control and own his situation and take control back over where he is. And within a few weeks, now also when I met him, he was at such a low that he had anxiety attacks, panic attacks at work, couldn't even go to work anymore. And so he was on a mental health leave. Now, after we started working together, within 2 months, he was back to work. Anxiety attacks went away. He felt more confident. He started talking to people. He got a badge that said, I have Asperger's, which is a form of autism that he had, and instead of letting that label control and really have weight on him, he started wearing it proudly on his backpack and just telling people and like really owning it. And he started turning into his superpower into a conversation starter, started, kind of educating people about what that really means for him and how he experiences life differently that way. And so within a few months, he not only went back to work, started actually interacting with people, started being actually happy again. Anxiety attacks went away, and he even started a little club, almost a company, to help people learn to dance for mental health. And so he started teaching people dance, um, to help with their mental health because that was one of the tricks or one of the ways that it's helped him. So absolutely a total transformation from being stuck under something that was controlling his life to taking control of his own life and completely reshaping his reality. Yeah.
That's amazing, Ondra. Wow, you came such a long way because you went from being young, having doubt, thinking you're too young, to overcoming those limiting beliefs, to being able to help someone. And for the people listening, sometimes like we have these beliefs that stop us, like, oh, I'm too young, or oh, I'm not a licensed therapist. I love what you said, Andra, how your weakness can actually be like a superpower. And so I think society has actually taken what often is a superpower in people and they've labeled that as something bad. So you mentioned, what is it, Asperger's is what it's called?
Yes.
Like someone
Yes.
like, I know Elon Musk has Asperger's, and he actually uses that as like a superpower because he built all these companies. And so he could have told himself a story that, oh, this is what's stopping me, but he flipped the script. And so there's a really good book called Super Normal that helps you to
Mm.
really, yeah, it's called Super Normal by Meg Jay, I believe is the author. It just helps, it shares a lot of stories of people who basically took this adversity, this label, and then transformed
Mm.
it into something really powerful and positive. So that's amazing, Andra, that you were able to do that. And I love that transformation. That's absolutely like, and in such a short time frame too, is what's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think in his particular situation, not to bash therapy completely, but he did spend a few years in therapy and trying different things. So he already built up a lot of self-awareness. So, that's sometimes the work that can take a lot of groundwork to really starting to understand where these things are coming from and whatnot. So he was right at the point where he was ready to completely flip it and have that exponential growth. Not everybody will be at that stage where I meet them when I start to work with them. So sometimes it might take longer, and that's totally okay because people have their own journeys. But yeah, this guy personally was
I
in
see.
a great
And
place.
that perfectly leads us to part two of the Creators for Change pathway, which is activate. Now I'm curious, Andra, like in a nutshell, what did you walk someone like that through? Like, what was the steps or the process? How did you help them transform in such a profound way?
Yeah. Well, a first step in something like this is really looking at, okay, what are the weaknesses or what are my disadvantages that are seemingly holding me back, and how can I transform them into my superpower or into my advantage? I've done that with my life countless times with different ways. So I give people examples with my age, for example, or with my social anxiety, or with my um, logical thinking, let's say, that got me bullied because I was very smart, but it also helped me in so many other ways, right? So, okay, what is something that seems like a disadvantage and how can we flip it? Like in his case was the Asperger's, right? So that's the first steps that we look at. And very important step here is people need to take responsibility over over their life and over what can I do. So when I was being bullied, I would, and when I was really stuck in kind of the victim mode and I didn't have any control, any confidence yet, I was blaming everything outside. I was blaming the school that, the school is so awful because that's the environment. I was blaming the bullies. I was blaming the teachers who didn't help me. And I was blaming everything and everybody outside of me. And very justified, to be fair, right? But then I realized like that's not really helping me. Like it's just keeping me stuck. So I made a mental switch. Well, like, okay, what can I do? Right? And I took responsibility over my own situation. And one of the things, for example, that the bullies would say was, "Well, you're really shy, and you're really like you can't speak, whatever, right? And that's what you're a nerd, you can't speak to people." That was one of the things that they made fun of me, and I was, you know what, and that I'm weak, and I was like, you know what, they are right. Like as much as it sucks to be bullied for this, they are right. And so, what can I do? Well, I can become more confident. I can become stronger, right? So I started working out and I started practicing social skills and I started practicing speaking to people. So I took my responsibility over myself and I started improving. Very important, very difficult step for people to make in the beginning, especially in heavy situations like, over being bullied or being in a very disadvantaged place. But unless you take that control by taking responsibility over what you can do and what you can change, what you can control, you will stay stuck. So, next step in terms of confidence building and in terms of taking control over your life is you got to look at your habits. And in the beginning, I help people get rid of one negative habit that's taking away from them and install one new habit. Very often, that new habit is going to be something like running or working out or calisthenics or some sort of sports, something physical that gets people to start building physical strength, physical discipline, and also um, that transfers into mental strength and social strength as well in this case. Now, the next step is looking at, okay, what is your bad habit or what is the habit that's taking away from you? So that might be consuming too much on social media or watching too much porn in a lot of guys' examples or um, and smoking weed. It really matter that it doesn't it really depends on or drinking too much alcohol. It really depends on what the situation is. I would say 80% of people would probably say, "Oh yeah, I consume too much content on social media, right? Too much entertainment content." And so one of the ways, for example, is we do, well, stop bringing your phone to bed, right? Stop using your phone in bed. Right? That's one of those beginnings where it can start making a big difference to people. Either don't bring it to your bedroom at all, or just don't use it in bed. Um, and um, then we figure out, okay, what are your goals? What are your dreams? What do you actually want to do? Now that you've cleared up and you're feeling better, more confident about yourself. So, what is your goal? What is your dream? How can we create a plan? How can we create a pathway for you to get there?
I love that last part because, after you transform someone, then you put them on a path towards their goals. And something that I really appreciate too is like helping them come up with a strategy. Because what's the point of getting someone like really excited on a new path if we don't bring them to where they want to go? So I love that. I love that. And that's really amazing, Ondra, that you do all that. And you attract a lot of people. I know you go to like a lot of in-person events where you share this, but you also do a lot online. So I'm curious to hear what content strategies have brought you the most success with this? I know we talked about going live, but what other content formats? Because I see you post on quite a few different platforms.
Yeah. So believe it or not, for me, I would say the biggest success has come from short-ish or like medium long written posts with a photo on Facebook. Like that has been pretty basically number one in terms of growth and connecting with people and lead generation for business and educating people as well, and in terms of reach as well historically. And yeah, so that format, like just a written format, has been really great for me.
I would actually agree with that. The approach that I take, and everyone's is different. So for the people listening, it's good to experiment and see what works for your brand. But a lot of people will discover me on YouTube or Facebook groups and they'll follow my main profile. And then that's where I nurture people. So Instagram and YouTube is good for discoverability from what I found. And then Facebook is just good for building more of a deeper connection. I don't know what it is about Facebook, but there's like, I think people are more like invested in it. It's more about like relationships and connection. So, so yeah, everyone, again, experiment to see what works for you. But another question I have to ask you, Ondra, is how do you personally stay grounded throughout this whole process? Because you're working with a heavy niche. I mean, mental health and social anxiety, those things can really bring up a lot of baggage and weight in people. So, how do you stay grounded while holding space for other people?
Yeah, wonderful question. It's not easy. Well, I mean, it wasn't easy in the beginning, and it is quite easy for me now. So I think one, what gives me disability is that I went through it myself. So I've been to those kinds of depth already. And I've had conversations with people that have been in much worse situations than me. So um, not to say that my situation was like super bad. I've heard much worse. But yeah, so that definitely helps, like being in the depth yourself. That gives you the ability to hold the space. But also on a really practical level, um, it's quite literally grounding. You mentioned that word by putting attention into my legs and into my feet while I communicate with people. And I also just I've gotten into this practice of just being there present, and I don't take it on and I don't make it about me at all. I don't take it personal, or I don't bring it on into my life. If I'm talking to somebody on a session and they're talking about how they want to kill themselves, and they're talking about the story of I, abuse or what torture, like I've heard so many heavy things. I've learned to be grounded in the moment and just let it kind of pass through me, and not take it on. And I can hold the space to and actively listen so that people feel heard and that people feel understood. But once again, I don't take it on, and I don't bring it home. I don't bring it away from the call emotionally. And if I do, then I guess I can talk to somebody else who can help me, right? I can talk to my own coach. I can talk to my own mentors. And I also meditate a lot. And I practice mindfulness and being present through The Power of Now, which is a great book full of wisdom. And yeah, so that's been definitely helpful as well.
I love that book as well. The Power of Now
Yeah,
by Eckhart Tolle, if anyone wants to check it out.
yeah,
Yeah, one of my favorites personally. I love that, Andra, and thank you for sharing all that because I know for me too, even when I started, even though my niche isn't like yours, where it's mental health and social anxiety, mine's business and YouTube, kind of similar to you. There's overlap. But I remember even with that niche, people would cry, they would talk about what they're going through. Some people are just more emotional, and it was hard in the beginning to detach and not take that on, but you gave some really great steps and practices that the people listening can take. I want to share this one quote by Steve Jobs with everyone. I don't know it word for word, but he talks about how if you're looking for the thing that you're meant to do, but you haven't found it yet, keep looking because with all matters of the heart, you will know when you found it. And so, Andra, I'm sure you've had that moment where you feel like you're on the right path. Was there a particular moment that really affirmed that feeling for you?
I think it's every time. I get messages of people thanking me for what I do, and people sharing their results or their progress, right? Like the story that I shared of my client, like that when that was happening, when that happened, and when I saw the transformation, when I guided that, that was like a big confirmation of like, yeah, this is powerful and this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it can also be in like much more simpler, much more simpler uh levels. Like I just got a message uh recently. I saw it again, but I think I received it late earlier of this girl saying that like, hey, I don't think you even remember me, but I we saw your video about it was something about following your dreams and whatnot and sharing your story, and then we talked a little bit, and you inspired me to start trying to edit videos, and now I got a part-time job editing videos, and I make more money than I thought I was gonna make with just simple editing videos. And so there's that little thing as well, you know, just inspiring people to actually go for what they want, and receiving those messages like every time is a confirmation of um,
Yeah.
being on the right path.
Yeah, I love that. And like I keep saying, you really embody that definition of a creator for change. Creator for change doesn't just chase followers and views for vanity's sake, but they do really value the transformation that they give people. And you can get a million views on a video and not transform anyone. In fact, you could leave them worse than you found them with mindless content, or you can get not as many views, but really help a lot of people. And that's what matters way more. Ondra, I'm curious what your bigger vision is for all of that. Like, if the sky was the limit, how big could your work become?
On the level of social anxiety, I see a world where social anxiety and loneliness doesn't exist anymore, because we create such a great culture and ecosystem and education so that people know how to deal with loneliness and social anxiety. So it literally, especially when I say it doesn't exist anymore, what I really mean is that it doesn't cause heavy mental health issues. So my social anxiety caused my depression, which caused me to really contemplate suicide, right? So social anxiety is a built-in mechanism that probably will still exist. However, it will not cause heavy, deep issues because people will know what it means and how to deal with it and what to do about it. And there will be more education and acceptance about it. So that's the world that I see when it comes to that line of my work and the world that I'm trying to create. On the other side of we didn't talk about this much, but why I call myself the robo humanist and what I'm working on that side is helping people create a healthy relationship between humanity and technology. In other words, how do we stay in touch and still keep embracing our humanity while technology becomes a bigger and bigger part of our lives? How can we use technology to enhance and embrace humanity rather than um, let it take over? On a personal level, on a really personal level, like we see that a lot of people, you know, their lives get taken over by social media almost completely, and they spend 8 hours scrolling on Instagram a day, which is, you know, we see that a lot. We see in younger people having social anxiety and depression and mental health issues because of the comparing themselves to people on social media and the likes and the comments and all of this. We see that. So with robo-humanism, I'm working on a vision to create a world where social media and technology doesn't cause mental health issues, and we really live in harmony with humanity and technology.
I love that. And I don't think that's I don't think that what you're saying is absolutely impossible. I believe that if we simply make people aware that they can use social media for good, they could work with technology, then it'll completely change their lives. Even the way that I use AI and ChatGPT, I use ChatGPT as kind of like a thought partner. Like I'll go back and forth and we'll discuss ideas. If I'm struggling with something internally, I'll tell ChatGPT and it actually gives me really good advice. I use social media to find community. And so even if people knew those two things, how to use AI to help themselves internally and how to find community, I think the world could be a better place because no matter where you live, you could go find a Facebook group of people like you,
Yes.
and then it's more than just online. You can connect with them there initially, maybe meet them in person. Of course, with being safe, don't go out meeting strangers in unsafe places, but with caution. I think if people knew that, yeah, the world could be a better place because what makes people happy is real, genuine, authentic connection. People really crave community, and I believe it's what the world needs right now. So,
Yeah.
one last final closing question, Andra. So, if someone's listening right now and they're at the beginning of their journey, what would you want them to know? Like, imagine 18, 19-year-old Andra is right in front of you. What do you want them to know?
If you go out and you create the content, and if you are going to be active on social media, it will work out for you in ways that you cannot even imagine yet, and you will unlock opportunities and friendships that you don't know um are coming yet. But trust the process. Like it will work out. Stay consistent,
Yeah,
and you will probably fail. You will embarrass yourself. You will make mistakes, and you will drop off, and you will feel like you don't want to continue. Push through that and stay consistent for the next coming years because that's how you make it successful.
I feel like I could read the mind of someone listening to this right now. I could read their mind in the future as they're listening to this. So, some people are reluctant to go in with social media because they think it's too late. However,
Mm,
with educational based content, demand is increasing. Right now, a lot of time and attention is going towards entertaining, I call it mindless dopamine content, but there's a shift happening. People are getting sick and tired of that. They're sick of the brain rot. They're sick of feeling empty, and so they're shifting. So, entertainment content demand is here. Education demand is here, but we're going through a shift. So you want to be in the game when this happens. It's happening now. It's going to continue. So those are my thoughts. Last question, Andra, where
yeah.
can people find you?
Yeah, go on Instagram at RoboHumanist, and that's like my main hub. From there, we can get in touch, and whatever else you need to go, I can direct you, or I can connect you with other people that might be the best fit for you. You can also go into my mental health accounts and uh, mental health resources. Yeah.
Okay, great. So best way for people to reach you is just by Instagram DM.
Yes. Instagram DM.
Perfect. I will put that link down below. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you for the next episode.